The champagne flute slipped from my fingers, crystal shattering against the marble floor of our penthouse, but the sound was nothing compared to the crash of my world falling apart. "Jennifer, I'd like you to meet Michelle," my husband Michael said, his arm wrapped possessively around a stunning brunette in a red dress that cost more than most people's rent. "She'll be joining us for our anniversary dinner. 10 years. 10 years of marriage, and he brought his mistress to our anniversary celebration." The woman, Michelle, extended her hand with a smile so sweet it could have fooled anyone who wasn't watching her eyes. Those cold, calculating eyes that swept over our home like she was already measuring it for new furniture. "So, nice to finally meet you, Jennifer," she purred. "Michael has told me so much about you." I'm sure he has, I thought, but what came out was a strangled pleasure. Michael's hand found the small of my back, a gesture that once meant comfort, but now felt like a brand. "Darling, I thought it would be nice to have company tonight. Michelle is an important business partner." Business partner, right. The kind of business that required late-night meetings, weekend conferences, and apparently anniversary dinners. "How thoughtful," I managed, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. "Should I set another place?" "Already handled," Michael said, guiding us toward the dining room where our housekeeper had indeed set a third place. At my seat. Michelle was sitting in my chair, at the head of the table, like she belonged there. I stood frozen, watching this woman, this stranger, pour herself wine from the bottle Michael and I had been saving for our anniversary. The 1982 Bordeaux we'd bought on our honeymoon in France. "This is exquisite," Michelle said, swirling the wine like a connoisseur. "You have excellent taste, Michael." Not we, Michael. Like I didn't exist. "The best," he agreed, his eyes never leaving her face. "Only the finest for special occasions." Special occasions. Our anniversary had become her debut. I sat in the chair pulled out for me, a guest in my own home, and watched my husband light candles for another woman. Watched him serve her the dinner I'd spent hours planning with our chef. Watched him laugh at her jokes and hang on her every word. "You know," Michelle said, cutting into her steak with surgical precision, "I've always believed that when something has run its course, it's kinder to everyone involved to just let it go gracefully." Her eyes met mine across the table. The message was crystal clear. "I couldn't agree more," Michael said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." They clinked glasses. I sat there, holding mine like a fool, watching my marriage die in real time. The rest of the evening blurred together. Michelle's laughter echoing through our home. Michael's hand on her waist as he showed her the view from our balcony. The way she examined our wedding photos with the detached interest of someone appraising art at an auction. "You must be tired, darling," Michael said to me around midnight, finally acknowledging my existence. "Why don't you head to bed? Michelle and I have some business to discuss." "Business at midnight, on our anniversary." I nodded, like the obedient wife I'd been trained to be, and walked toward our bedroom on unsteady legs. Behind me, I heard the soft murmur of their voices, intimate and conspiratorial. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed I'd shared with Michael for a decade, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. When had I become this hollow-eyed stranger? When had I stopped fighting for what was mine? The sounds from the living room grew quieter, more intimate. I pressed my hands over my ears, but I couldn't block out the truth. Michael wasn't just having an affair. He was replacing me piece by piece, moment by moment. He was erasing our life together and painting Michelle into it instead. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually exhaustion pulled me under. I fell asleep fully clothed, my makeup smeared, my heart shattered. When I woke up, the other side of the bed was empty and cold. Michael hadn't come to bed at all. I found them in the kitchen the next morning, Michelle wearing one of my silk robes, making coffee in my kitchen like she owned the place. Michael sat at the island, still in last night's clothes, looking more relaxed and happy than I'd seen him in months. Morning, sleepyhead, he said without looking up from his phone. Michelle makes incredible coffee. You should try some. Michelle turned to me with that same sweet smile, holding out a mug. Cream and 2 sugars, right? Michael told me how you like it. My hand shook as I took the cup. This woman knew how I took my coffee. What else had Michael told her about me? About us? I should go, Michelle said, though she made no move to leave. Thank you for a lovely evening. She kissed Michael's cheek, a lingering, possessive kiss that left no doubt about their relationship, and finally left. Michael and I stood in the kitchen, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. We need to talk, I said finally. Do we? He was already reaching for his jacket. I have an early meeting. We'll talk tonight. Michael. Tonight, Jennifer. He left. Just like that, he walked out, leaving me standing in my own kitchen, holding a cup of coffee made by his mistress, wearing a robe that smelled like her perfume. I spent that day in a daze, going through the motions of my life. I called in sick to work. Not that anyone would miss me at the small non-profit where I managed donor relations. I wandered through our penthouse, seeing it through new eyes. When had I become so invisible in my own life? The photos on the mantle told the story of our relationship, but looking at them now, I could see the truth I'd been blind to. In the early photos, Michael looked at me like I was his world. But as the years progressed, his smile became more distant, his touch more perfunctory. By the most recent photos, taken just last Christmas, he was barely touching me at all. That evening, Michael came home with flowers. Not my favourite lilies, but red roses. Michelle's favourite, I was sure. We need to discuss our future, he said, setting the flowers on the counter without putting them in water. Our future, I repeated. Jennifer, we both know this isn't working anymore. This, you mean our marriage? He sighed like I was being deliberately obtuse. We've grown apart. We want different things. It's nobody's fault. Nobody's fault? The words tasted bitter. So Michelle has nothing to do with this? His jaw tightened. This isn't about Michelle. Really? Because she seemed pretty comfortable in our home last night. In my robe this morning. You're being dramatic. Am I? Michael, you brought your mistress to our anniversary dinner. You let her sleep in our home while I was down the hall. How exactly am I supposed to react? With some dignity, he snapped, and there it was, the mask finally slipping. Some grace, some understanding that sometimes people fall out of love. Fall out of love? Or fall into bed with someone else? He ran his hands through his hair, the gesture I'd once found endearing, now just irritating. I filed for divorce, Jennifer. My lawyer will be in touch. The words hit me like a physical blow. You've already filed? The papers will be served tomorrow. I'm being generous with the settlement. You'll be fine. Generous. Like he was doing me a favour by destroying our life together. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out of my sight. Get out of this house. Get out of my life. Jennifer, be reasonable. Get out! The scream tore from my throat, raw and primal. Michael stepped back, startled by the force of my rage. Fine, he said, straightening his tie. I'll stay at the club tonight. But Jennifer, don't make this harder than it has to be. Accept reality. He left, taking his flowers with him. I stood in the wreckage of my marriage, surrounded by the detritus of 10 years together, and felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart. That was already broken. Something deeper. Something that had been holding me together, keeping me small, keeping me quiet. I walked to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. Really stared. At the woman who'd spent 10 years shrinking herself to fit into someone else's life. At the woman who'd accepted crumbs and called it love. At the woman who was about to disappear completely. The last thing I remembered was the sound of my own scream echoing off the bathroom tiles as darkness swallowed me whole. When I opened my eyes, I was 25 again, standing in our old apartment, and Michael was walking through the door with flowers, the same red roses, and the same speech about our future. But this time, I was ready for him. The calendar on our kitchen wall read March 15th, 2019. Exactly 3 years before that devastating anniversary dinner. 3 years before I learned that my husband had been planning my replacement like a corporate merger. But now I knew. I knew everything. Jennifer? You look pale, sweetheart. Are you feeling all right? Michael set down his briefcase, genuine concern in his voice. The same voice that would later tell me to accept reality with dignity. Just tired, I said, studying his face. At 32, he was still handsome in that polished investment banker way, still the man I'd fallen in love with in college. But now I could see the calculation behind his caring expressions, the way he was already measuring my responses. He moved to kiss my cheek, and I let him. But where his touch once made me melt, now I felt nothing but cold determination. I ran into Tom Bradley at lunch today, Michael said, loosening his tie. He mentioned that Michelle Parker just joined his firm as head of marketing. Remember her from Harvard? She was in your business ethics class. My blood froze. Michelle, even saying her name felt like swallowing glass. Vaguely, I lied. I remembered her perfectly now. The ambitious brunette who'd always been a little too interested in other people's boyfriends. Who'd smiled that same sweet smile while she undermined everyone around her. She's divorced now, Michael continued, and I caught the slight uptick in his voice. Interest, the predator sensing prey. Tom says she's been asking about us, wondering if we'd like to have dinner sometime. In my original timeline, I'd been thrilled. I'd pushed Michael to reconnect with old friends, not realizing I was orchestrating my own destruction. This time, I smiled and nodded. That sounds lovely, I said. You should give her my number. Michael's eyebrow shot up. Really? I thought you might feel weird about it, given how competitive she was back in school. Competitive. What a polite way to say ruthless manipulator. Water under the bridge, I said sweetly. Besides, I'd love to catch up. That night, as Michael slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and planned. In my previous life, I'd been reactive, always one step behind. This time, I would be the one setting the rules. The next morning, I called in sick to my job at the nonprofit, a job that had kept me financially dependent and professionally invisible. Then, I made 3 phone calls that would change everything. The first was to my college roommate Lisa, now a successful divorce attorney. Jenny! Oh my God, it's been forever! How are you and Michael? Actually, Lisa, I need legal advice. Hypothetically speaking, what would someone need to protect themselves in a divorce where their spouse might be hiding assets? The line went quiet. Jenny, is everything okay? Just curious. For a friend? Well, your friend would need documentation. Bank records, investment accounts, property deeds. Paper trails don't lie, but Jenny... Thanks, Lisa, I'll call you soon. The second call was to my brother David, who worked in cybersecurity. I need to learn about data recovery, I told him. Deleted files, hidden folders, that sort of thing. Sis, what kind of trouble are you in? The kind where I need to get ahead of it instead of behind it. The third call was to Elena Rodriguez, a private investigator whose card I'd found in my purse from the original timeline, a card I'd never had the courage to use. I need everything you can find on someone named Michelle Parker, I said, and I need to know how to document an affair before it becomes obvious. How far in advance are we talking? 3 years. Eleanor laughed. Honey, you're either psychic or very, very smart. I like smart. Let's meet. That afternoon, while Michael thought I was homesick, I sat in Elena's office, learning the art of strategic surveillance. The key, Elena explained, is patience. Let them think they're being clever while you document everything. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel reservations. Make them build their own case against themselves. What about emotional damage, the humiliation? Elena's expression softened. Honey, the courts care about assets, not feelings. But public opinion? That's a different story. People love a good victim-turned-victor story. I smiled. Then let's give them one. Over the next few weeks, I began my transformation. I enrolled in night classes for my MBA, something I'd always wanted but had put off to support Michael's career. I opened my own bank account and began freelance consulting for other nonprofits, building a client base and financial independence. And I watched. God, how I watched. Michael started working late more often. He began going to client dinners that lasted until midnight. His phone habits changed. Protective positioning, bathroom trips with his device, that guilty startle when I walked into the room. The first time Michelle called our house, I answered, Jennifer, hi, it's Michelle Parker. Remember me from Harvard? Of course. Michael mentioned he'd run into Tom. How are you? Wonderful, actually. Listen, I know this is presumptuous, but I'm throwing a little housewarming party next weekend. Would you and Michael like to come? In my original timeline, I'd been excited to attend. This time, I heard the calculation in her voice, the way she emphasized you and Michael, like we were a package deal she planned to unwrap. We'd love to, I said. Can I bring anything? Just yourselves. I'm so excited to catch up with both of you. Both of us, for now. The party was exactly what I expected. Michelle's new downtown loft, carefully designed to look effortlessly chic. She'd positioned herself perfectly, successful, independent, available. The kind of woman who made wives feel frumpy and husbands feel restless. I watched her work the room, but especially how she worked Michael. The lingering touches, the private jokes, the way she listened to his work stories like they were fascinating instead of the repetitive corporate drama I'd heard 1,000 times. She's quite something, I said to Tom Bradley's wife Sarah, positioning myself where I could observe. Michelle, oh yes, she's very focused. Tom says she's brilliant at identifying opportunities and pursuing them relentlessly. Opportunities, like my husband. I can see that, I murmured, watching Michelle leaning close to Michael as she showed him something on her phone. Their heads bent together, intimate and conspiratorial. It was almost exactly like that anniversary dinner, except this time I was watching from the beginning. When we got home that night, Michael was unusually talkative. Michelle's done really well for herself, he said, loosening his tie. That loft must have cost a fortune. She certainly seems to know what she wants, I agreed. It's refreshing, to meet someone so ambitious, so clear about their goals. Unlike your wife, I heard in the subtext. I said, brushing my teeth. I liked her too. We should have her over for dinner sometime. Michael's reflection met mine in the bathroom mirror. Really? You'd want to do that? Of course, I think we could be friends. The lie tasted sweet on my tongue. Because Michelle and I were going to be very close indeed, just not in the way she was planning. Over the next month, I cultivated Michelle carefully. Lunch dates where I played the boring, suburban wife who was lucky to have such an accomplished friend. Coffee meetings where I confided my insecurities about not being ambitious enough for Michael. You're being too hard on yourself, Michelle would say, her eyes already calculating. Michael is lucky to have someone so supportive. Supportive, controllable, disposable. Sometimes I worry I hold him back, I'd sigh. He's so brilliant, so driven. I wonder if he'd be happier with someone more dynamic. "Oh, Jennifer," Michelle would coo, "don't think like that. Although," she'd pause, as if the thought had just occurred to her, "it is important for couples to challenge each other, isn't it?" She was good, very good. But I was better, because while she thought she was manipulating an insecure housewife, I was documenting everything. Every coffee date where she pumped me for information about Michael's schedule, every accidental encounter at his gym, every text message I pretended not to notice him hiding. And I was building something else, my own empire. The consulting business was growing faster than I'd ever imagined. Turns out, when you're not constantly second-guessing yourself or deferring to your husband's opinions, you're actually quite good at strategic thinking. Elena's investigation was yielding treasure troves of information about Michelle's past. The married professor she'd had an affair with in graduate school, the engagement she'd broken off when she found someone wealthier, the pattern of targeting successful men who were vulnerable to flattery. "She's a predator," Eleanor reported, "but a smart one. She never gets caught because she makes the wives complicit in their own destruction." "Not this time," I said. "No," Eleanor agreed. "This time, she picked the wrong target." 6 months after that first party, Michael started coming home with gifts. Little things, a scarf, expensive chocolates, flowers, the kind of guilty offerings that meant he was thinking about someone else. "What's the occasion?" I asked when he presented me with a tennis bracelet I'd never wear. "Can't a man buy his wife something nice?" "Of course, it's beautiful." I kissed his cheek and felt him stiffen slightly. Guilt, building in layers. That night, I found the credit card statement. The bracelet had cost $3,000. So had the one he'd bought 2 days earlier, the one that wasn't in my jewelry box. I photographed the statement and sent it to Elena with a note. The evidence is building itself. The next morning, Michelle called. "Jennifer, I have a favour to ask. It's a bit awkward." "Of course, anything." "I'm having some work done on my place and I need somewhere to stay for a few days. Would it be too much trouble?" In my original timeline, I'd insisted she stay with us. I'd made up the guest room myself, ordered her favourite wine, cooked elaborate dinners to make her feel welcome. This time, I paused just long enough to let her worry. "Michelle, of course you can stay with us. We'd love to have you." "Really? You're such a lifesaver. I promise I won't be any trouble." "Don't be silly. What are friends for?" When I hung up, I smiled at my reflection in the kitchen window. What are friends for, indeed? Time to find out. Michelle arrived on a Tuesday with 3 designer suitcases and a smile that could cut glass. "You're an angel for letting me stay," she gushed, air-kissing my cheeks while her eyes catalogued every expensive detail of our penthouse. The contractors said it would only be a few days, but you know how these things go. I knew exactly how these things went. In my original timeline, those few days had stretched into 3 weeks of Michelle inserting herself into every aspect of our life. "Make yourself at home," I said, leading her to the guest room I'd prepared with military precision. Fresh flowers, luxury linens, and a bottle of her favourite wine chilling in an ice bucket. The perfect hostess welcoming her own replacement. But this time, I'd made some modifications. "This is gorgeous," Michelle said, setting her bags down and immediately moving to test the view from the window. "You can see the whole city from here." "I thought you'd like it. Michael picked this apartment specifically for the views?" The first lie, delivered with a warm smile. Michael had wanted a ground floor unit for security. I'd insisted on the penthouse, knowing that successful people needed to look down on the world they were conquering. "He has excellent taste," Michelle said, her fingers trailing across the silk curtains. "In everything." Her eyes met mine in the mirror, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something predatory. She was testing me, seeing how I'd react to the implication. "I think so," I agreed pleasantly, "though I'd like to think I've influenced him over the years. Marriage is a partnership after all." The word marriage hit its intended target. Michelle's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. That evening, Michael came home with Thai takeout and an enthusiasm I hadn't seen in months. "Michelle, you made it," he said, his whole face lighting up as she appeared in the living room, wearing a silk dress that managed to be both elegant and subtly revealing. "Michael, thank you so much for letting me crash here. Jennifer has been absolutely wonderful." "She's the best," Michael said, barely glancing at me as he set down the food. "Always taking care of everyone. Like a maid, like someone whose job it was to facilitate other people's lives." "Wine?" I offered, already moving toward the kitchen. "I opened that Bordeaux you've been saving, Michael. I thought this was a special enough occasion." Michael's face went through several interesting expressions. That wine had been a gift from his biggest client, meant for a true celebration. But how could he object without seeming ungracious in front of Michelle? "Of course," he said finally. "That's perfect." As I poured the wine, I listened to them settle into easy conversation about work, about mutual acquaintances, about everything except the elephant in the room. The fact that she was staying in his home with his wife. "You know," Michelle said, accepting her glass with a grateful smile, "I was just telling Jennifer how lucky she is. A husband who's successful, handsome, and still brings home dinner. You're a rare breed, Michael." Michael preened under the praise. "I try to take care of my girls." His girls, plural. I took a careful sip of wine and caught Michelle's eye. "We're both very lucky," I said. "Though I have to say, Michelle, you're selling yourself short. A successful, beautiful woman like you? I'm surprised you haven't been snapped up again." "Oh, you know how it is," Michelle said with a laugh that sounded practiced. "After my divorce, I've been focused on my career. But lately," she glanced at Michael through her lashes, "I've been thinking it might be nice to have someone special again." The audacity was breathtaking. She was sitting in my living room, drinking my wine, and openly flirting with my husband while I served them dinner. "You'll find someone," I said warmly. "A woman like you always gets what she wants." Over the next few days, I watched Michelle work her magic. She was good. Better than I'd remembered. She knew exactly how to make herself indispensable while seeming harmless. She started making coffee in the mornings, claiming she was an early riser and didn't mind. Soon, Michael was lingering in the kitchen, chatting with her before work while I was still getting dressed. She began staying up late, claiming jet lag from a recent business trip. Michael started staying up too, the two of them talking in low voices on the terrace while I pretended to sleep. She offered to cook dinner one evening, producing ingredients for Michael's favourite meal that I'd mentioned once in passing. She remembered everything, filed it away, used it as ammunition. But I was ready for all of it. The cameras Elena had helped me install were capturing everything. The audio feeds were recording every private conversation. The software David had loaded onto our home network was tracking every message, every email, every clandestine communication. More importantly, I was building my own relationships. "Jennifer, darling, you look absolutely radiant," Charles Morrison said as we met for lunch at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Charles was the managing partner at the firm where I'd started consulting, and, more relevantly, Michael's biggest rival. "Thank you, Charles. I wanted to discuss the Peterson account." "Of course, though I have to say your strategic recommendations have been inspired. That social media campaign you designed increased their donor engagement by 40%. I smiled, cutting into my salmon with practiced ease. I've always believed in playing to people's emotions. When you understand what someone really wants, you can give it to them. Speaking of which, Charles leaned forward slightly, I've been authorised to offer you a full-time position, Senior Director of Strategic Development, your own team, your own clients, and a salary that I think you'll find attractive. The offer was everything I'd dreamed of in my previous life. Financial independence, professional recognition, the power to build something that was truly mine. That's incredibly generous, I said, but I should discuss it with my husband first. Of course, though, Jennifer... Charles's expression grew serious. In my experience, the most successful partnerships are between equals. Make sure you're not undervaluing your own contributions. That evening, I mentioned the lunch to Michael over dinner. Michelle was there, of course, having extended her stay indefinitely due to complications with her renovations. Charles Morrison offered me a job, I said casually, passing the salad. Michael's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Charles Morrison? He's your biggest competitor, yes? Senior director position, quite a substantial offer. You're not seriously considering it, Michael said, his voice sharper than usual. Why not? It's a wonderful opportunity. Because it would be a conflict of interest. Because Morrison would only hire you to get information about my clients. Because I might actually be good at it? I interrupted gently. Michelle had gone very still watching this exchange with the intense focus of a cat studying a mouse hole. That's not what I meant, Michael said, but his tone suggested otherwise. What did you mean? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Michelle spoke up. I think it's wonderful that Jennifer has options. It shows how talented she is. Her voice was warm, supportive. But I caught the calculation in her eyes. She was measuring this development, figuring out how to use it. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Of course. Women need to support each other, don't we? Especially when... She paused delicately. Well, when we understand what it's like to build something from nothing. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Michelle, the self-made woman. Me, the dependent wife who'd never earned her own success. Absolutely, I agreed. Though I've been lucky to have such a supportive foundation. Michael's always encouraged my ambitions. Michael nodded quickly, trapped by his own public persona. Of course, whatever makes you happy. But his eyes said something different. His eyes said, don't you dare. That night, after Michael had gone to bed, I found Michelle on the terrace with a glass of wine. Mind if I join you? I asked, bringing my own glass. Please, I was just thinking what a lovely evening it is. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, two women enjoying the city lights. Then Michelle spoke. Jennifer, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Are you happy? The question hung between us like a loaded weapon. That's quite a question, I said carefully. It's just, you and Michael seem so different. He's so driven, so ambitious, and you're... She paused, as if searching for the right word. Content, settled. Is that bad? Not bad. But sometimes I wonder if people grow in different directions, you know? If what made sense at 25 doesn't make sense at 35. She was good. Very good. Planting seeds of doubt while positioning herself as the concerned friend. I suppose that's possible, I said. Though I think strong marriages adapt. They find new ways to challenge each other. True. Though sometimes the kindest thing is to let someone go. To let them find someone who can match their energy. There it was, the poison wrapped in kindness. Michelle, I said, turning to face her fully, are you trying to tell me something? Her eyes widened in apparent surprise. Oh, no, of course not. I care about you both. I want you to be happy. That's very sweet of you. I hope I haven't overstepped. It's just that sometimes, as an outsider, you see things. What kinds of things? Michelle bit her lip, the picture of reluctant honesty. The way Michael lights up when he talks about work, when he talks about challenges, about growth. He's such a dynamic person, Jennifer. He needs someone who can keep up with him. And you think I can't? I think you're wonderful. but you're safe, comfortable, and sometimes men need more than comfort. The audacity was stunning. She was sitting in my home, drinking my wine, sleeping in my guest room, and telling me that my husband needed someone like her. You might be right, I said quietly. Michelle's eyes gleamed with victory. I hope you're not upset. I just think you deserve someone who appreciates you for who you are. Someone who doesn't make you feel like you need to be more than you are. You're very wise, I said. I am lucky to have such a good friend. As I stood to go inside, Michelle reached out and touched my arm. Jennifer, if you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here. Women should look out for each other. Thank you, I said. I'll remember that. Inside, I poured myself another glass of wine and opened my laptop. Eleanor's latest report was waiting in my encrypted email. Michelle's renovations were fictional. Her lease had been terminated for non-payment 3 months ago. She'd been planning this move for weeks, timing it perfectly with Michael's growing dissatisfaction. But the most interesting discovery was a series of emails between Michelle and someone named David Chen, a private investigator she'd hired to dig up dirt on me. She was looking for leverage, for secrets she could use to push me out of the picture. Too bad for her that my secrets weren't what they used to be. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Charles Morrison. I accept your offer. When can I start? His response came back immediately. Monday. Welcome to the team, Jennifer. I have a feeling you're going to be extraordinary. I smiled, closing the laptop. Tomorrow, I would tell Michael about my new job. Tomorrow, I would watch his face as his carefully controlled world started to slip. But tonight, I had one more message to send. Eleanor, I typed. It's time to move to phase 2. Our house guest has overstayed her welcome. The morning of our anniversary dawned grey and drizzling, as if the universe itself was setting the mood for what was to come. I woke up at 5 a.m., not from nerves, but from excitement. After 3 years of careful planning, today was the day everything would fall into place. Michelle was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, making coffee in the silk pyjamas I'd bought her as a thank you for being such a wonderful house guest gift. She'd been living with us for 2 months now, her fictional renovations extending indefinitely. Good morning, sunshine, she said brightly. I thought I'd make us all breakfast. It's a special day after all. Special day. She knew exactly what today was. That's so thoughtful of you, I said, accepting the coffee mug she offered. Michael will be thrilled. Speaking of which, Michelle glanced toward the stairs, then lowered her voice conspiratorially. I have something to confess. Here it comes, I thought. The final move. I feel terrible about this, but I may have accidentally seen something yesterday. Michelle bit her lip in that practiced gesture of reluctant honesty. Michael was on the phone with someone about dinner reservations. For tonight. For 3 people. She watched my face carefully, searching for the crack in my composure that would give her the opening she needed. 3 people, I repeated, letting just the right amount of confusion creep into my voice. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. I think he might be planning to tell you about us tonight. At dinner. He probably thought having me there would make it easier, less dramatic. The audacity was breathtaking. She was preparing me for my own humiliation, packaging it as a mercy. Us, I whispered, setting down my coffee cup with shaking hands. Michelle moved closer, placing a sympathetic hand on my shoulder. Oh, honey, I thought you knew. Michael and I, we've been seeing each other. It just happened, I swear. We tried to fight it, but... How long? My voice came out strangled, exactly how it should sound. Does it matter? Jennifer, I'm so sorry. We never meant for it to happen. But we're in love. Real, deep, life-changing love. I stared at her, letting tears gather in my eyes. In my house, while I welcomed you, took care of you. I know how it looks. But Jennifer, you have to understand. Sometimes love just happens, and when it does, fighting it only makes everyone miserable. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out. The scream tore from my throat, just like it had 3 years from now. Get out of my house. Get away from my husband. Michelle stepped back, but her eyes were bright with satisfaction. Jennifer, please don't make this harder than it has to be. Michael loves you, but he's not in love with you anymore. Can't you see that he's been unhappy? The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted us. Michael appeared, already dressed for work, his face cycling through confusion, guilt, and anger. What's going on? Jennifer, why are you shouting? She knows, Michelle said softly. About us. I'm so sorry, darling. She saw your phone last night. Darling, in front of me, in my kitchen. Michael's face went pale, then red. Jennifer, we need to talk. Talk? I laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut. What's to talk about? You're fucking my houseguest, in my home, on our anniversary. Don't be crude, Michael snapped. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? I'm being dramatic. My voice rose to a shriek. You brought your whore to our anniversary dinner 3 years from now, and I'm being dramatic. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Both Michael and Michelle froze. 3 years from now, Michael repeated slowly. Shit. I was supposed to be discovering this, not remembering it. I started, but Michelle was staring at me with new awareness. Jennifer, she said carefully, what did you just say about 3 years from now? I could see the wheels turning in her head, the confusion giving way to something else, something dangerous. I'm upset, I said quickly. I don't know what I'm saying. But Michelle was backing away from me now, her face white. You said he brought me to your anniversary dinner 3 years from now. How could you know that unless... Unless what? Michael demanded. Michelle's eyes never left mine. Unless she's been planning this. All of it. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then I started to laugh. It began as a giggle, then grew into full-bodied laughter that echoed off the kitchen walls. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, until my sides ached, until both of them were staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Oh, Michelle, I gasped, wiping my eyes. You beautiful, predictable, stupid woman. Jennifer? Michael took a step toward me. What's wrong with you? Wrong with me? I straightened up, and when I looked at them, all traces of the weeping wife were gone. Nothing's wrong with me. Everything's wrong with you. I walked to the kitchen island and opened the drawer where I kept important papers. From it, I pulled out a thick manila folder. Let me tell you what's wrong, Michael. What's wrong is that you're a cheating, lying, manipulative bastard who thinks he's smarter than everyone around him. I opened the folder and began laying out photographs. Michelle and Michael at restaurants. Michelle and Michael in hotel parking lots. Michelle and Michael kissing in his office after hours. What's wrong, Michelle? Is that you're a predatory gold digger who targets married men and destroys families for sport. More photos. Michelle's financial records showing her debts, her history of affairs with married professors, married bosses, married clients. But what's really wrong, I continued, my voice growing stronger with each revelation, is that you both underestimated me. Michael was staring at the photos, his face cycling through shock and rage. How did you? When did you take these? Oh, Michael, I've been documenting your affair since before it started. That's impossible, Michelle breathed. Is it? Let me tell you what's going to happen next, Michelle. Michael is going to ask you to marry him. Probably tonight, at that restaurant you helped him pick. He's going to give you the ring he bought with our joint credit card. the one that cost exactly twice what he spent on my engagement ring. Michelle's hand flew to her throat. You're going to say yes, of course, and then you're going to discover that Michael has been hiding debts, gambling debts specifically, about $3 million worth. What? Michael stared at me. How do you know about your poker games with clients, about how you've been using company funds to cover your losses, about how you plan to divorce me and take half my inheritance to pay off your bookies? I pulled out another set of documents, bank statements, transaction records, photographs of Michael at underground poker games. Here's the beautiful part, though. You can't divorce me now, Michael, because I've been building my own empire while you were building your house of cards. I showed them the final document, a contract with Morrison and Associates. I start Monday as senior director, full executive package, stock options, and a very interesting non-compete clause that prevents Morrison from doing business with anyone who's defrauded their clients. Michael's face had gone completely white. Jennifer, you can't what? Tell your boss that you've been stealing? Can't show your clients where their money really went? Can't prove that you've been laundering funds through your girlfriend's fake consulting business? Michelle made a small, strangled sound. Oh, yes, Michelle. I know about the shell company you set up. The one where Michael's been funneling money, planning to disappear with you to some non-extradition country once he cleaned out our accounts. You're insane, Michelle whispered. Am I? Eleanor, would you come in here, please? Eleanor Rodriguez stepped out of the pantry where she'd been recording everything. Behind her came two people I didn't recognize, a man in a suit and a woman with a badge. Detective Williams, Eleanor said pleasantly, these are the suspects we discussed. Jennifer? Michael started forward, but the detective raised a hand. Mr. Harrison, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Miss Parker, you're under arrest as an accessory. As the handcuffs clicked into place, I walked over to Michelle. She was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks. You know what the best part is? I said softly. In 3 years, when you get out of prison, I'm going to be running Morrison and Associates. Your little investigation into my background, it's going to show that I'm the woman who brought down the biggest financial fraud case in the city's history. Michael was shouting something about lawyers, about fighting this, about how I'd never get away with it. I ignored him and walked to the refrigerator. From the freezer, I pulled out a small cake I'd ordered specially for today. Chocolate with vanilla frosting, just like our wedding cake. Happy anniversary, darling, I called to Michael as the police led him away. Then I turned to Michelle, who was being read her rights, and smiled. Oh, Michelle, sweetie? When you're settled in your new accommodations, I'll send you a slice. Consider it a housewarming gift. As the door closed behind them, I cut myself a piece of cake and took a bite. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. 6 months later, I received 2 letters. One was from Michael's lawyer, informing me that he'd accepted a plea deal for 7 years minimum security in exchange for testimony against his accomplices. The other was from Michelle, written on prison stationery, begging me to visit. I threw Michael's letter away without finishing it. Michelle's letter, however, I framed. It hangs in my new corner office at Morrison and Associates, right next to my Employee of the Year award. Turns out, when you stop playing defense and start playing to win, life becomes much more interesting. The cake, by the way, was delicious. I'm thinking of having another anniversary party next year. After all, I deserve to celebrate.